Welcome, everyone. This is the June 16th, 2026 Ogden City Council and Redevelopment Agency meetings. This is the City Council portion of that meeting. I'll let the roll call reflect that all council members are present, with the exception of Council Member Myers, who is asked to be excused, although I know he's trying to participate, but it's kind of iffy for him. And Councilmember Ritchie is on electronically. Councilmember Ritchie, would you like to say hello?
Hello, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. So we've asked Vice Chair Graff if he would lead us in the pledge.
Please rise if you are able and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
If you would now join us for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Acknowledgements. Council members, any acknowledgements you'd like to?
Yes, I would love to acknowledge the upcoming Juneteenth holiday and invite Miss Betty Sawyer to come up and chat about the festivities that are happening this weekend and that have been happening all month long. But as Miss Betty is making her way up here, just wanted to give a little background to the Juneteenth holiday. June 19th, 1865 marks the date that Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced the end of both the Civil War and slavery. The announcement, General Order Number 3, reads as follows. Feel free to make your way up, Miss Betty. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. The Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Abraham Lincoln had legally freed the enslaved in Texas on January 1st, 1863. Almost 2.5 years earlier. Even after General Order Number 3, some enslavers withheld the information from enslaved people, holding them enslaved through one more harvest season. Texans celebrated Juneteenth beginning in 1866 with community-centric events such as parades, cookouts, prayer gatherings, historical and cultural readings, musical performances. Juneteenth is happening. The celebrations are happening this Saturday, and I would like to invite the Ms. Betty Sawyer to make a few comments.
Welcome, Miss Betty.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure being here, even when I can't hardly talk. And today also happens to be my birthday, so I'm honored to share a few moments with you and break away from the family. But thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here and for lifting up Juneteenth. And for us, it's more than a day of celebration. This is a day of hope. This is a day of renewed strength and encouragement, a reminder of the resilience of those that came before us, even in our own community. I stand today on the shoulders of the Gillespies, the Masseys, the Goodwins, the Marshall Whites, and all of those folk who paved the way and kept things moving in our community for so long, so that when I came along 50 years later, 50 years ago. I've been in Utah 50 years. Wow, I can hardly believe it. I was a baby, fresh out of college, coming to this sight unseen, Utah. My brother tricked me. He said it was the most beautiful place in the world. It is. That's why I'm still here. It is absolutely gorgeous. I looked at the mountains and said, yeah, this is God's country. But as we celebrate Juneteenth, we have all kind of wonderful activities. We crown Mr. and Miss Juneteenth as a scholarship program with our event. We have essay contests for kids K through 12 to have them write about what Juneteenth means to them and family traditions that they hold dear. And we invite you to do the same. This year's theme is family reunion. And family reunions are so important. That's the time when we sit around and hear those old tales shared by our grandparents and parents and siblings. And the other day I was reminded of one of my memories from being on my grandfather's farm in North Carolina, making ice cream. Has anybody made ice cream lately? We don't even think about making ice cream. Getting out that big wooden thing, filling it with ice. We taking turns churning the wheel until it got hard and couldn't wait until that top came off and we got to taste that delicious ice cream. And those are the stories that we need to be reminded of. If we don't tell it, who's going to tell it? But the other side of Juneteenth is that pursuit of liberty, justice, and freedom. And I never thought that I would be alive having to fight those same fights again. But here we are, 2016, and those freedoms that we hold dear are so precious, and they can be fleeting if we're not careful. We're at a time when people are trying to convince us to normalize things that aren't normal as okay. We can't do that. We have to remember, just like our ancestors did, even those that paved the way coming to Utah, they had something to stand for, they fought for it, they planted, they harvest, they worked for it to build a better place. And that's what Juneteenth is for us. So we can't assume that everything is going to be okay if we continue down the same path that we're on. We have to stand up, we have to fight up, we have to speak up to hold on to these freedoms that our ancestors sought so hard for us to enjoy today, and that I've been fighting so that my grandkids and great-grandkids and those that come behind me have a legacy to build upon so they don't have to start from scratch. And I call the work that we do wealth. Like money, they shouldn't have to start from zero. They should be able to build upon the foundation that we've laid so that they can go even further. And that's what it's all about. So I invite you to come out to the amphitheater. Mayor, I thank you for your support, and those before you, the city council. Over the years, Ogden, we have the biggest and the best celebration going. Everywhere we go, they're like, we can't wait to get to Ogden because we made a name for Juneteenth here in Ogden. I could have easily kept it in Salt Lake, but it's like, no, we're going to come home and make this a part of our community. So again, thank you. We thank Weber County and all of our private supporters that this is our 37th year of holding Juneteenth here in Ogden. Put your hands together, City Council. You're a part of this legacy. And the first one we held in Ogden was on the grounds of the Marshall White Center with a flatbed truck, an umbrella over the singer on the stage, because we were willing to take a chance in Ogden to make Juneteenth a reality. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you, and hopefully some of you will join us for remarks at the amphitheater on Saturday.
Miss Betty, if people wanted to find out more information, is there a website that they could go to?
They sure can. They can go to Project Success Coalition or type in Utah Juneteenth, and that will get you the full schedule. And as Councilwoman Washington said, we've been celebrating since the 30th of May, and we'll continue to celebrate through the 4th of July. Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Betty. Appreciate your inspirational words.
And one other thing, I'm going to mess with you all a little bit. Salt Lake City, we know that policies have been passed to keep flags from flying and certain flags, but Salt Lake City Council and Mayor worked to adopt a flag that they could use not only for Juneteenth, but to celebrate Pride Month. celebrate our diversity. So I'm putting that on each and every one of you that I'm going to be looking next year so that we can do a flag raising in Ogden. Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Betty. Anyone else have acknowledgements? Okay, we'll go to approval of minutes. The joint work session and special meeting of May 12th, 2026, and the closed session of June 2nd, 2026. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. I review the special meeting on May 12, 2026, and closed session of June 2026, and I found them to be accurate.
And the work session and regular meeting of May 19th, 2026. Councilmember Lundell.
I reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate. Thank you.
Okay, looking for a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes from the joint work session, special meeting of May 12th, 2026, and the work session and regular meeting of May 19th, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, they are passed. Next item is reports from administration, the appointment of Chief Administrative Officer. We've got Ben Nadolski, our mayor, going to make that presentation. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair, members of the council, members of staff and administration. It's my pleasure today to be here to recommend Taylor Nielsen for the position of Chief Administrative Officer. Before we get to that part, I want to give a little bit of background about the process that got us to this point. We conducted a nationwide recruitment for the position of Chief Administrative Officer. We reviewed 48 candidates. The candidates came from across Utah and multiple states, including, like I said, Utah, Colorado, Kansas, Oregon, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Georgia, and North Dakota. I settled on 10 different finalist level candidates, and the recruitment pool, or the candidate pool, included candidates that were city managers, county managers, deputy chief administrative officers, executive directors, state government executives, public safety executives, professionals in public infrastructure and economic development. Those candidates had a collective pool of executive leadership experience, municipal governance experience, budget and financial management, strategic planning, organizational leadership, public sector administration, and community engagement, stakeholder relations. I convened a panel both of leadership level Ogden City employees as well as external community and professional partners to help me with this process. Finalists averaged 18 to 22 years of public sector governance experience and 12 to 15 years of executive leadership experience. Finalist candidates manage budgets that ranged anywhere from $100 million to $350 million annually. And I want to say that during the process, one of the questions that we asked was why Ogden? And I'll just tell you that these candidates applied for this position because they felt it was a great time to be in Ogden. That this is a position that's sought after, that it's a place that people want to be. And I think that's a reflection of the work that all of you guys do and all of you guys do and what this entire community continues to do. Now, following the completion of the recruitment and the interview process, the panel unanimously recommends, with my full endorsement and full support, Taylor Nielsen to move forward to you tonight to the City Council for the advice and consent consideration. And before I get to Taylor's accomplishments and why he was selected, I want to first say, because I see Crystal here tonight, if any of you have read the book or heard of the book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, maybe I'm not supposed to say this because it's an HR process, but I just want to say that Taylor started his interview with his why. And I want Crystal to know that you were his why and your kids were his why, and that his family is what inspires him and pushes him to be better and to be his best. And I'll tell you that he gave the best interview I've ever seen, ever. Many of you already know Taylor Nielsen from your experience in working with him. Today, he currently serves as a Deputy Chief Administrative Officer and City Engineer. And I don't say that lightly. To be both of those things is a lot, you guys. That I've seen, because his office is across the hall, how much effort that has taken for him to hold both of those roles together. And he does that because he wants to save this city, because he wants to do good to make sure that this city has adequate coverage, and to do it for the least cost possible to the citizens. And I have seen Taylor bend over backwards to make sure that he fulfills both roles. That's not something that just anybody could do. Taylor brings 14 years of experience and service to Ogden City. He has always served in positions of increasing responsibility, and he has a really broad range of experience and insight from rank and file all the way to the top of administration and executive leadership. And that has served him well so far, and I know it's going to serve him well with your support tonight. Taylor's experience extends far beyond just infrastructure and engineering, includes citywide operational coordination, strategic implementation, organizational planning, budgeting, policy implementation, and stakeholder engagement. Taylor has personally overseen more than $100 million in municipal infrastructure projects and helped coordinate a citywide capital improvement program exceeding $350 million. Taylor's built strong working relationships in the community, hopefully with each of you guys too, as well as with our staff and our partners. And he brings a balance of leadership profile, including a combination of executive leadership, municipal operations, strategic planning, infrastructure management, economic development coordination, and organizational improvement. Taylor has distinguished himself throughout his experience here at the city and through his leadership for our people. He has the institutional knowledge, the successful management, and the major city initiatives behind his belt. And he knows how to lead people. He knows how to lead an organization. He knows how to manage public resources, and he knows how to get things done. This is the man that this city needs right now. It's certainly the man that I need by my side. He has always been by my side, and he has always been by Mara's side too. This is my honor tonight to recommend to you for your advice and consent and consideration tonight, Taylor Nielsen for the position of Chief Administrative Officer. Thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I think while we're waiting for Taylor to come up, we'd probably like to hear from him for a second, but I think it is important for our citizens to know that we did have a closed session a couple of weeks ago where we all kind of ran him through the paces a little bit. So we have had a time to interview him, ask him some personal questions, and so that's what brings us to now. So Taylor, why don't you come up and tell us about whatever you want to talk about.
I'm going to try and do it without getting emotional. You mentioned my family, and that just does a good job on me. And so I know that I've had the opportunity on numerous occasions to see you guys on different baseball fields and different areas here in the community with my family. And so if I can compose myself appropriately, I will be able to make it through this all right. So I apologize for that.
Lock it up, you know. Isn't that what
That's what I always heard. That was the term. I always had to lock it up. Ogden, about 14 years ago, I remember making the drive up this way, and I was fresh out of school. I was looking for work. There's a job that posted in Ogden. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to come up here and apply to be an entry-level engineer. And I remember pulling down in off a 24th Street viaduct. And I think all of you know that the place just felt different. For as much as we had always heard about what Ogden was supposed to be, it was never any of those things. And for those of us that have been here and know the city and know what it truly is, Ogden's never anything like any of the outsiders talk about. And I think that's what makes it so special and so amazing. So I appreciate locking it up. I appreciate 14 years ago, you guys welcoming my family here and accepting me and just being able to be part of not only the community, but of the workplace and of everything that we're able to do. And I've just appreciated the opportunity to be able to grow my career since I've been here. I've been part of projects that I never would have thought I would have been able to have a hand in. I've been able to do things that have just been incredible. And I think engineers and their lifetime never got to do projects as amazing as I've been able to be a part of here at such a great city. So I'm just grateful for an opportunity to be here and work at such an amazing place. So knowing what I know of how amazing Ogden is, this is truly an honor to be put forward as part of this recommendation from the mayor and to be brought before you today as council members. I appreciate this opportunity to be here. I know what an amazing opportunity this is and what an incredible city Ogden is. And I would look forward to the opportunity with your approval to continue that great work, continue to bring great things here to the city of Ogden. So thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. We have elected to take public input tonight. We would appreciate if those of you who'd like to address the council's consideration of appointing Taylor Nelson to be our CAO. If you come forward now, limit your comments to 3 minutes. And give us your name and city, please.
Good evening. I'm Steve Jones. I'm a citizen of Ogden. I'm not going to take 3 minutes because this is a very short story. You guys have in front of you the absolute right candidate. He has proven over and over again that he knows how to get things done, that he is willing to listen to the community and work with community members, and he can make hard decisions when he has to. So, put the whole package together, and I don't think you have any other valid choice except to endorse him, bring him on board as the next CAO. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm Joseph Bauman, a lifelong citizen of Ogden, the great city of Ogden. And I just follow what he said. I've met Taylor in the past, and he's a gentleman, a family man, and I'm happy that somebody from Ogden was selected rather than bringing somebody in from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, is what I just talked to Taylor about. But yeah, I'd highly recommend that you approve him as the new administrative director for Ogden City. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got to know Taylor probably over about.
Can you give us your name?
Oh, sorry about that. My name is Bill Dodge, and I actually live in West Haven. I'm just outside the border of Ogden, but I was born and raised here, so Ogden's my home. We worked a lot with Mayor Nadolski when he was still on the city council, and then after he was elected mayor, he continued to be open and was willing to listen to us and talk to us and so forth, which is really important to us. We don't always agree, but he's at least willing to talk to us. And I think he got a little worn out by us, frankly, and he assigned Taylor to the job, kind of stuck him with the responsibility. He needed a little insulation there. And we were really pleased to find out that Taylor had the same exact mindset. He's worked with us. He's been willing to take time, sit down and listen to us. Again, we don't always agree, but we talk, we discuss things. He helps us to understand what's going on that we don't know. And if you guys don't select him, you're crazy. So sorry.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Jared Johnson, I'm the Director of Community Economic Development for Ogden City, and I would like to echo the things that you have heard. I've had the ability for the last 11 years to work side by side with Taylor in all the different capacities that he has served the city in. And I can tell you without a doubt that he has fulfilled every single one of those just exceptionally well. He's extremely intelligent. He's extremely bright. He is never afraid to get involved in whatever is going on and to assist and jump in. He spends a lot of time working for this city when he probably should be with his family, but that's how passionate he is and that's how much he cares. And I just really appreciate all the help that he has given to all of us over time. And I would also agree and ask you to please vote in favor of, I think this is a fantastic recommendation, and I'm sorry we're losing Mara because she is amazing as well, but I think Taylor will do a good job filling in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Mike Slater, Fire Chief. I also want to give my endorsement for Taylor. I got to meet Taylor quite a few years back and have had some really good discussions and maybe some really difficult discussions, which I greatly appreciate. We don't always see eye to eye, but we always come to a consensus on things. I got to know the character of Taylor just not too long ago when I actually got to hang out with his son, and I'm sure his wife probably does not appreciate that, but you could see in that young man the character of his father. And so that alone sold me on Taylor Nelson. I'm also going to miss Mara. She's been a fantastic friend and a fantastic leader for the entirety of her time here in Ogden. I've known Mara and she's been fantastic, but I have no issues with Taylor Nelson, and I think he would do a fantastic job as the CAO. So, thanks.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone else?
Thank you. I also want to just recommend Taylor. One thing I've found with Taylor, I've appreciated knowing him for the whole time he's worked for the city, and watching him grow in his career. He is super smart. And I have all the confidence in the world in who he is as a person, and I think he is a wise choice for the city. I also want to thank Mara for her leadership and her friendship, and she will be very missed. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else? Okay, council members, any discussion or a motion?
Seeing no further discussion or any motion in the chambers, I would like to make a motion to accept the appointment of Taylor Nielsen as Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Ogden.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to appoint Taylor Nielsen as Chief Administrative Officer. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lundell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember Washington,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye, that passes. That's unanimous. And I think that does call for a little bit of a celebration. So
Congratulations.
Taylor, bring your wife up and introduce her to us. Yep. Bring your sweet bride up with you. We need to see what backs you up.
That's right.
This is my beautiful wife, Crystal, and she's probably, like Chief Slater said, the reason why our kids are so amazing. And so I am just grateful for her and for her support and everything she does. And so I feel like I have a great support at home, a lot of help and strength, and I appreciate her being there for me always and everything. And so even on rough days or fun days, it's always nice to have someone at home to be able to come home to. So.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Crystal. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just appreciate the city. You guys have allowed my husband to grow into his capacity. Like the others have said, he is very intelligent. He is very smart. He gets things done. He is amazing, and I know he's going to serve this city well. He takes his job very seriously, and he says what he's going to do. He's very integrity. His integrity is very important to him, and I know he will do an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, council members. I really appreciate the opportunity tonight. And so, Mayor, thank you for your appointment, and Mara, thank you for the opportunity to work with you this last year. So again, thank you all.
All right, thanks, Taylor.
Good evening.
Yeah, and I would really like to add my thank yous to Mara also. It seems appropriate to kind of sing your praises a little bit. You've been here for 3 years and done a great job. Very much appreciate the time you've spent. Sorry to see you go. Glad that you're moving on fun things and happy things, so that's good. So thank you, Mara, for the service you've rendered to Ogden.
Great. Thank you, Chair Heyer. I really appreciate that. And it really has been the tremendous opportunity of a lifetime to be as CEO of Ogden City and the city I love and just appreciate working here. And I can't be more positive and enthusiastic about Taylor Nielsen coming on to replace me. It's been an honor to work with him side by side the last year and a half as the deputy CAO and watch him immerse himself in the projects and doing that in such an exceptional, with intelligence, integrity, and I just couldn't be more grateful to be passing the baton on to Taylor. So thank you and appreciate it.
Well, best of luck on the new chapter of your life. Yeah. All right. Did I forget anything? We all good to move? Forward? All right. Next item, we actually have several public hearings tonight. And we're going to take them individually. We would appreciate, though, if you'd like to speak to these public hearings, that you limit yourself to the content of that particular item on the agenda. And also recognize that though you have 3 minutes, don't feel constrained to use it all if it's not necessary. Appreciate the ones so far that got to the point and that sat down. So anyway, the first public hearing we have is for the proposed fiscal year 2025 to 2026 year-end budget amendment. We have Justin Sorensen to present to us. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Chair. Council members, pleasure to be here. I know most of the items on the public hearing are related to our upcoming fiscal year, but this item is related to the end of this current fiscal year. So I appreciate you taking a moment to consider this. And I'm waiting. Well, Brandon pulls that up. So for your consideration tonight is a final year-end budget opening to the Ogden City budget for fiscal year 2026. This amendment increases the total budget by just over $600,000. The items in this budget opening, most of them are grant related, and so I'll quickly go through those. So in the CIP fund, we'd like to recognize some funding that we received from UDOT related to the D Avenue project, and also some funding for the 20th Street and Harrison project related to some manhole covers there. And then we'd also like to recognize, excuse me, the ramp awards that we received this year for 3 different projects. This is related to Castile Field dugouts, Lester Park improvements, and Serge Simmons outfield landscaping. The match for these 3 ramp projects have already been appropriated as part of the fiscal year 26 original budget. This is now recognizing the ramp awards that were received. So the total increase to the CIP fund is just over $500,000. There is one item in the golf fund we'd like to appropriate. This is related to doing fiber improvements at Mount Ogden. I know there was a question when I presented on this in work session a few weeks ago. That seems like a high cost for just fiber. In speaking with Todd Brinkman, the golf over the golf course, we did a few weeks ago, we did a budget amendment for El Monte, and this is for Mount Ogden. A lot of this is related to the IT infrastructure inside the buildings, that they needed new switches and different equipment there related to be able to, with the new fiber they put into this. So that's what those funds are being used for. We're using golf retained earnings to be able to pay for this. So that would be increasing the golf budget by $18,875. In our miscellaneous grants fund, this is where we will recognize a lot of different awards that we received of various sizes. So in here, we're proposing to recognize 4 different items that were received. One for the police department. This is a Rocky Mountain Power Foundation grant for them to be able to purchase equipment for $5,000. For the fire department, the emergency management performance grant for $15,000 is to help support wages for fire. In CED, recognizing a grant from the Circle of Life for $30,000, and this will provide art support. And then on public services, recognizing some donations for sustainability that will be used for items related to sustainability. So in the miscellaneous grants fund, increasing that budget by just over $52,000. And then in our Weber Morgan Strike Force Fund, we're recognizing additional funds from the state asset forfeiture grant in the amount of $30,000. So for your consideration tonight is an appropriation of $616,700 for your request.
Any questions for Justin?
Yes, this is just a follow-up on a couple questions that I asked during the work session. Just ensuring that the Weber Morgan Strike Force is the same as the Weber Morgan Narcotics Strike Force.
Correct.
Is there a reason why narcotics is being omitted?
In our accounting, the way we call it in our accounting system, our fund account, we call it the Weber Morgan Strike Force. So the full name is the Weber Morgan Narcotics Strike Force.
Okay, thank you. So we can just make sure that that gets updated. And then you said it's the Circle of Life grant. However, in the packet that was sent to us, it's the giving, sorry, I'm looking for.
Circle of Life Giving Grant, correct? I might add a typo in my presentation. So yes, the Circle of Life Giving Grant.
Thank you. And I did have a question that I asked during during work session, just for further explanation, potentially from the city attorney staff of how that is. I will start with, I support the arts granting and what it's going towards. However, considering the granting entity and the members that are involved in that entity, and that they are part of some organizations that Ogden City works directly with, to explain how that is not a conflict of interest for us as a council to be voting on.
To be sure I understand your question correctly, you're wondering if members of the city, appointed officials or elected officials who also have an interest or are on the board or something else, whether it would be appropriate for them, if there is a conflict of interest for them to vote on this?
Yeah, just the city, just looking at the nuances of the particulars and the legality of course, conflicts of interest, individual conflicts of interest, and then how that works, that it is entitled the Ogden Giving Circle, and some of the members in the Giving Circle are also directors or executive directors that the city works with, like Visit Ogden, that if there's a conflict of interest of there, with us up for voting on this tonight as part of this miscellaneous grants funding.
Okay. Well, just a general explanation of the conflicts of interest. In general, they are focused on private interests, so private financial gain. So if there's a risk that you're going to personally gain from something, then that would be a conflict of interest. I went through the conflicts of interest just before this meeting. I couldn't see any mention of being on a board or a committee when it's not related to a personal financial interest.
Okay.
That being said, I would always encourage that if any individual within the city or anyone who's voting on an issue feels that personally there is a conflict of interest, that then of course they can make that personal decision to abstain from voting. But I wouldn't see that legally, unless there's a personal financial gain, that there would be a conflict of interest.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, so those of you who would like to address this item, which is the year-end budget amendments, now would be the time. Not seeing any movement, don't see any
Anybody
hands
on hand?
online, look for a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, Vice Chair Graff, seconded by, I think you beat him just a little bit, because Councilmember Lundell. So this is a voice vote to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any
And
opposed?
Chair,
Yes.
regarding the proposed ordinance 2026-13, amending the 25-26 year-end budget, I move for adoption.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Graff, seconded by Councilmember Lundell to adopt ordinance 2026-13. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye. Sorry.
Councilmember Washington.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye, that passes. Okay, the next item is the proposed executive municipal officer compensation. And we have Mr. Symes to present. Welcome, Mr. Symes.
Thank you very much, Chair. So these next two items are, of course, lots of fun, not controversial at all. So hopefully we can get through those and answer any questions that people have. So the first of these two items on your agenda, these are public hearings. They're state-required public hearings, but there's no action on those. So we'll go through these presentations. You can have your public hearing, and then we'll move on to the next. All of these elements get incorporated into the final budget consideration. So as was mentioned, this is the public hearing on municipal officers' compensation. And based on this particular state code, this requires cities that are proposing compensation increases for executive municipal officers to provide a public, or to notice a public hearing and hold that public hearing. As I mentioned, this is a separate public hearing from the budget public hearing. There's no action, but these changes do get incorporated into the final budget. So we're doing them all together tonight. So based on the description in state code, as it applies to Ogden City, these are the executive municipal officers. So that does include the CAO and deputy, city attorney and deputy, department directors and assistant directors, division directors, assistant directors. The chiefs and the deputy chiefs are considered department directors, and so they are part of this, and then council director and assistant executive director. And so what is proposed as far as compensation increases for those employees is the same as for all employees, and that includes a 2.18% COLA increase. And this, and we'll talk more about this as we go through the budget presentations tonight, but that COLA moves all of the ranges for all of the positions. So every position goes up 2.18% at the bottom and at the top. And that is approved with the salary schedules, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then a 4% merit, or up to a 4% merit, and that is based on performance evaluations, as I said, just the same for all employees. So that's what's being proposed for municipal officers. Is the same thing that's being proposed for all employees. So I know these are hard to read. This information is in the packet, but you can see there that these are all of the ranges for all the administrative positions that fall into that definition. You can see kind of on the middle left there is what was adopted with last year's budget, what's proposed with the FY27 budget. The far right is where you see that 2.18% change. So again, this moves all those ranges. This is not indicative of where an individual is in the range, but this just moves the range up. And then likewise, for the city council staff and the city attorney, again, that far right column, you see that change in the range at 2.18%. It should be noted that if an individual is topped out, so if they are at the top of the range, they would only be eligible for the COLA and not the merit. So we used to do bonuses if somebody was topped out. The city does not do that anymore. So if somebody's topped out in their range, they get the COLA, not the merit. So we did a study a couple of years ago that we would be in the third year of implementing with FY27. That was a compensation study, and it used a number of different metrics to look at where our positions are, where our staffing was, job titles, all kinds of different things. In that 2024 compensation study, among all of the recommendations that it made, one of the biggest ones was that we would want to align with the average market. So we definitely don't want to be the bottom. We don't need to be at the top. We want to kind of be in the middle with all of these ranges. And again, that began with the FY25, so FY27 would be the third year of implementation. So again, I apologize, these numbers are a little bit small, but hopefully the graph on the bottom kind of shows how this works. This is for the CAO position. When we look at comparable cities, there's really only a handful that we can look at. So there's only a handful of cities in the state of Utah that have our same form of government, and even fewer that actually have these positions that we can benchmark against. And so I wanted to put together some comparisons. So these are the salary ranges for these, a couple of positions, but this is the CAO position related to other cities that have a CAO position. So the CAO position is not the same as the city manager or city administrator. That's the other form of government that the state has. So like I said, there's really only a handful of cities that have this form of government and that have a true CAO that we could compare to. So you can see on there, Salt Lake City, West Jordan, Provo, Sandy, and Murray are who we generally compare salaries to with these positions. And you can see the Ogden City CAO position is just as the 2024 compensation study indicated or recommended to be kind of middle of the pack there. Salt Lake City has a very wide range in that A1 grade of theirs, 170 to 425, so that kind of skews their numbers up. The Murray City CAO, that is not included in their salary schedule. That number is from an employment contract, so that is the number. So that would just change based on that employment contract. So you won't see that in their salary schedules anywhere. So for the council executive director position, again, you'll notice that Salt Lake City number tends to skew it high. Murray's is quite a bit lower than kind of the middle of the pack there, but you can see where ours compares to the other cities, kind of excluding those two on the outside.
Glenn, do we have any idea where their CAO or their actually is on that range? the
Who's
Salt
CAO?
Lake person? It just
I
does-
don't. I don't have any idea.
No idea.
There'll be a slide at the end if you're interested. It'll give you a resource if you want to look at individual people. These are just the ranges that are approved
Okay,
with their budgets.
just curious. That seems like a very large range.
It's a very large range.
Yeah.
And then the city attorney, the mid-range of this, you can see is the lowest, but when you look at kind of the low and the high, it's still generally in the middle of the pack, with the exception of that Salt Lake City. So all of their CAO, council executive director, the city attorney, and department directors, which is the next slide you'll see, are all in that grade A1 range, and so they all have that big wide spread there. And then, as I mentioned, the department directors, this is where it kind of breaks down. So you would need to really go into more detail if you really wanted to compare apples to apples. You can see Ogden City, Salt Lake City, and Sandy all have just one range for their department directors, but Provo, Murray, West Jordan all have multiple. So to really get a direct comparison, you would have to take the fire chief in Ogden compared to the fire chief in Salt Lake, and Provo, which grade that is, and Murray, to really get a comparison of that. So I didn't go into that much detail, but you can still see that range for Ogden City compared to all of the rest of those ranges is still pretty much middle of the pack as far as that goes. So hopefully that helps in providing a little bit more information as to where these positions are in relation to some of our comparable cities. And then this is the website if you want to look up individuals, transparent.utah.gov. So you can go there, you can look up any public employee and find their compensation. And this website is much improved from a few years ago, so you will be able to see wage and then additional compensation, benefits, retirement, things like that. It does break it down. The one relatively minor word of caution is this does depend on how each city reports this information. So it may not be reported exactly the same in every city as far as some of the benefits and stipends or bonuses or things like that. So there is some variation depending on how the entity reports the information, but this is a really good resource if you really want to find out where somebody is in that range that's adopted. Any questions I can answer for you at
Is
this
that
point?
required that cities do report to that website?
Yes.
Okay. They just get to decide exactly how they do it, huh?
Yeah, it's just the accounting sometimes is a little bit different from one city to the next. I mean, it's not huge variations, but every city does things a little bit differently.
So maybe they don't list their bonuses the same or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of a calendar year, so all the cities operate on a fiscal year, which is July to June. And so if you look up a 2025, you may cross over into two different budget years, which may skew those numbers a little bit.
I see. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Glenn? Okay. All right. This also is a public hearing. So if anybody would like to address the council about the proposed executive municipal officer compensation.
I found the number. It's 200,000 for the wage and 80,000 for the benefits.
Okay, thanks, Thor. You want to tell us your name since you spoke?
Isn't that internet wonderful when you can pick up a phone? The first phone I had was a great big brick that I carried around. And the next one was another big, huge phone. But anyway, what I wanted to comment on.
Gotta still have your name.
Yeah. Joseph Bauman, Ogden resident. What I wanted to comment on, I'm fully in agreement with the COLA. I think that's necessary with inflation and what's affected it the last few years and everything with cost and things that have gone up. The one thing I'd like to see if the council can't look into that, if you have an employee that's reached the max in their range, the comment was made that there are other cities in Utah that have various ranges, and we've done that with Pineview Water Systems, that you're gonna, if you have an employee that's been here for 20 years and they peaked out and there's no more merit incentive, then you're gonna lose somebody that's here 20 years that they can go to Salt Lake or Provo or someplace else. And if you create another new range area so they can get in a different track, so they're still eligible for that merit incentive, I think it'll help keep employees here and not lose them for 10 cents an hour more to go to Salt Lake or Provo or some other place.
Thanks, Joseph. Anyone else? Not seeing any hands online or any movement in the chambers. We'll look for a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
And I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Lindell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did we get Ken?
Yep.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, thank you. This is not an action item, so we're going to just keep plowing forward. Next item is our proposed utility enterprise fund transfer. And we have Mr. Symes to present again.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is just a public hearing. There's no action on this item. These transfers will get incorporated into the final budget. So you might see a bit of a theme with these two items. There's a state code that requires that if we do these kinds of transfers, we have to hold a separate public hearing and provide a notice. And this particular notice is required because we are proposing to move enterprise fund funds from one of those funds to the general fund for a purpose not directly related to the fund's operation. And we'll get into this a little bit more. But that does require that notice and a separate public hearing, and it requires a notice to the users of the enterprise fund. And because the users of these enterprise funds are also our utility customers, all of our utility customers get this notice that gets mailed out. So that's why everybody got the notice. So just to touch on enterprise funds themselves, the purpose of an enterprise fund, they are accounted for separately from the general fund. They have a source of revenue other than taxes, so either utility rates or greens fees or recreation fees or some sort of charge for service. And the intent is for them to be self-funded to the extent possible, which means that those revenues from the charges for services would cover the expenses. And Ogden City right now has 10 enterprise funds, 4 of which are these utility funds. You'll hear or notice in the budget documents, there is a proposal to remove one of the enterprise funds. It's a small recreation enterprise fund, so that would drop that number down to 9. But as of this moment, the city has 10 enterprise funds. So the intent of the transfer itself, it is intended to act as a collection of a franchise tax and a property tax. And what that means is the non-city utilities pay both a franchise tax and a property tax. As an enterprise fund and as a separate utility, we want to treat our utilities as though they were non-city utilities, and this transfer it would be intended to act like that transfer or that payment of the franchise tax and property taxes. And the methodology and the philosophy for this has gone back to at least 1994. And I say 1994, this maybe is too much information, but I say it back to at least 1994. When we talked about this issue with the 2012 utility rate study, we were able to track easily through our financial software back to 1994. There was a change in financial software at that point, and that information was archived. The finance director at the time did assure us that that had happened before 1994, but we know for sure that it has happened since at least 1994, and the breakdown has been the same. The 6% for franchise tax, 6% for property tax, and a 5% administrative charge. And the administrative charge is a little bit different, and I'll touch on that a little bit in the next couple of slides, but this is for administrative services that are provided to these utilities. So this is risk management, payroll, legal issues, all of these kinds of administrative services. Those are considered directly related to the operation of the fund, so that 5% is not included in the notice, so just the 2 6%. So just by way of sort of showing consistency, this is a frequently asked question document that we produced with that 2012 utility rate study. It goes through, it talks about enterprise funds, it talks about the different transfers, the 2 6% transfers and the 5% transfers and why we do those. So like I said, the methodology has stayed the same for many years. This is just one example from about 14 years ago when we did that big utility rate study. So it's one thing to talk about it and kind of go through words and look at text. So I thought I'd take a stab at trying to diagram this and show a picture of how this works. So you see the non-city utilities like Rocky Mountain Power, Enbridge, Comcast, there's a couple of others. They collect their revenues from charges for services the same way the city utilities do. And the non-city utilities do pay the franchise tax and the property tax. What this transfer would do is just act as that for our city utilities as well. And as I mentioned, the administrative services, this is the 5% that doesn't get noticed. These are, like I said, for legal, for HR, for payroll, for budget finance, all of these things. That 5% goes to the city's general fund. Those services are then provided to the city utilities, so those utilities don't have to provide those for themselves. For the non-city utilities, of course, they have to provide all of that, and that would be a separate charge for them, and they would have to incorporate that into their charge for services. So that's the idea of how this all flows through and how this works. Hopefully that diagram is helpful. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer those at this point. Otherwise, we can get to some of the questions at the end.
Any questions for Glenn about this? Okay.
Okay, so like the last item, 2024 was a bit of a busy year as far as study goes. So the council was interested in looking at this issue and looking at that 5% administrative transfer and looking at the impact of eliminating this transfer on the utility rates and property taxes. And this is a really important policy point. This was assuming revenue neutrality in the general fund. So if we don't do that transfer and we want to keep our general fund revenues the same, what do we do to make that difference up? And so some of the findings with that study showed that that administrative transfer was appropriate. They did look at it a couple of different ways, and that 5% seemed an appropriate number to transfer to cover those expenses. And then this general fund revenue, if we wanted to keep revenue neutrality, would require a property tax increase of about 33%. And also what this study showed is that would generally disproportionately shift that burden to tax-paying properties versus all of the utility users that are contributing right now. And so, again, I thought I'd take a stab at trying to diagram this out and try to lay it out graphically. So you can see residential and non-residential properties both pay property taxes. Residential properties get assessed at 55% of their taxable value, so there is a 45% discount on that taxable value when collecting or assessing property tax. Residential is 100% of the value. Then, of course, tax exempt, we don't collect any property tax on those. So one of the results of doing this transfer is that because all of those property types do pay a utility bill, a portion of this does get collected and transferred through that property tax and franchise tax, and eventually does end up in the general fund to support those citywide services. And what that study showed, of course, is that if we switched to a property tax model, the utility bill would go down for all of those entities, but because only residential and non-residential pay property tax, that would disproportionately shift that to those property tax paying properties. So hopefully this graphic is helpful too to kind of show how that would shift around. And then last, we are required to present some of this accounting data, so I'll just walk through this a little bit. So you can see the top row of numbers there. This is the proposed franchise tax and property tax that is proposed to be transferred out of each of the funds. So this is the 12%. So these are the two 6% transfers. About $7.5 million is proposed from all four collectively that would go to the general fund. And this 12% of these two 6% plus the 5% is calculated based on the charges for services. So that's where you see in the water fund, for example, the $31.7 million, not the total fund expense budget, which is the higher amount, that $39 million. So the charges for services is what this transfer is based on. You can see how that flows through. And then just as a percentage of the total fund, you can see it is a little bit less because there are other sources of revenue for each of these utilities. And then again, that administrative transfer, which is 5% of the charges for services, that's about $3.1 million from these four utilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have on that. Otherwise, we can move to the public hearing portion.
Any questions for Glenn? Okay, thank you. This also is a public hearing. Those who would like to address the council concerning the utility enterprise fund transfers, now would be the time.
Joseph Bauman again, Ogden City. I'm not a big fan of the enterprise fund. I think that it's kind of, over the years, when it was originally intended, the intent was to use for infrastructure and the different costs that's associated with the administrative. And what happens is the rates continuously go up to offset so that there's money to come out of that fund to go into the enterprise fund, and that's around 8.9 million or something this year is what it's going to be transferred with the 5% and the 7%, totaling the 12%. And I think that there's got to be some other way to do it rather than putting it in to the general fund. And I've been here for the last 2 years talking about the 36-inch water line that's coming down the canyon. We got like a $68 million bond or whatever that amount is. And it's I think a 30-year bond that we have to pay for through taxes, increased property taxes to defray that. And what I wanted to do, what I suggested to the mayor several years ago, is to take part of that enterprise fund and pay the principal amount on that bond so that we can retire that bond early and save the taxpayers in Ogden City interest on that bond. And there's got to be a financial and a legal way to do that. I know the enterprise fund was set up many years ago for the purpose for infrastructure and different things, but you talk about raising property taxes, well, you raise the rate, so we're essentially paying property tax by the rate increase for garbage, sewer, and the other stuff, water. And water is going to be a big issue. I'm going to talk about it when the public comments come on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, we've got one online. Julian Snyder.
Yes, thank you. Julian Snyder, Ogden resident. I've emailed this letter to my direct council representatives, but I wanted to read it here too. I also believe that enterprise fund transfers should stop. Beyond the small administrative cost recoupment, all funds raised from utility bills should stay in that enterprise fund to maintain our infrastructure and pay back the related debts we've taken out. Better yet, fees for these essential and monopolized services should be reduced until there's no anticipated excess. The Ogden resident does not have a choice as to their water, sewer, or trash provider. Ogden City is the sole provider of these services. I can understand the intention behind public utilities, but I have concerns about what happens over the course of time, since the government doesn't have to compete to provide the best service and lowest cost. The concern isn't mine alone. We've heard from other residents, and there's even a popular musical called Urinetown that explores what happens when needed services are offered on a paid basis. Prices slowly inflate, services gradually expand from necessary to nice, as in the case of Rocky Mountain Power providing over $16 million over the past 5 years in various grants, or in this case, Ogden City providing for some of its costs by padding utility bills to the tune of $7 million a year. Since the study the city commissioned in 2024, I've heard one particular reasoning given for transfer: tax-exempt entities don't pay property tax. I also know that Utah offers military members property tax exemptions, and I understand that this greatly affects property tax revenues for the city. However, muddying the waters of a city budget allows for waste and misuse to occur. Ogden City should not participate in roundabout practices that seek to charge tax-exempt entities or its citizens more than necessary. Tax-exempt institutions are given that break for a reason. I understand that the study determined that costs would be higher for the tax base if those transfers didn't occur. And if Ogden City is obfuscating true costs of services by indirectly or opaquely increasing revenue, it is preventing its citizens, taxpayers, and voters from doing a true cost-benefit analysis regarding the services the city provides. I think budgetary clarity is important. I think Ogden should be transparent and moral in how it raises and spends the money it collects from its residents. It should stop overcharging its people and the charities trying to operate in its borders. Many people here rely on charities either through provided services or provided community bonds. Please focus on essential services rather than comparing us to any other city's path, and take care of current residents and existing infrastructure before building new. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Snyder. Anyone else in the chambers? Okay.
Laura Lewis, Ogden City. I finally bought into the enterprise fund transfers. Now I understand what they're for. But the one question I have, when they go into the general fund, how is that money tracked? How do we know where it's spent? Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. All right, anybody else? I'll look for a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Graff, seconded by Councilmember Washington to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? No, I don't think there was anybody left, so. All right, so that also was not an action item, so we will move to the next public hearing, which is the proposed fiscal year 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan. And we have Mr. Burton to present to us today. Welcome, Steve.
Sorry, that seemed like a little bit of a long walk. I should have come up here earlier. I'm glad that Glenn gets a little bit of a break before going over the budget with you. I'm trying to, I just pull this over, or do I just, I'm trying to remember. Okay. I like that. Oh, okay. All right. Good evening.
You act like this is the first time you've done this before.
Well, I feel like, never mind. I feel like there's usually something here. Maybe there, I don't know. Good evening. Yeah, I'm happy to go over the FY 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan with you. Just a little bit of background about the CIP. The council each year adopts budget goals and typically around budget time like now, and included in those budget goals are goals related to the CIP and how it's to be reviewed and approved with the budget. So city code tells us what constitutes a capital improvement plan, and we've got that included up here. And it essentially comes down to projects that cost more than $50,000 that expand or improve the city's physical infrastructure. It includes the design and construction of things that you can see here, like buildings and streets, utilities, parks. It can also include projects, rehabilitation and reconstruction projects, as well as projects that require leasing of land and acquisition of land, as well as projects that require debt financing or borrowing. Also, it can include projects that require or that are financed by impact fees. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Cool. So you can see here there are quite a few different funding sources for the capital improvement plan projects. Most notably, there are city funds, so like BDO lease revenue that cover quite a few of the projects. There are also federal and state grants that go towards funding a lot of the projects that you see in there. There are also B&C road funds and active transportation funds that come from sales tax and gas tax, percentage of those taxes. There are also enterprise funds that come from user fees from things like utilities, airport, golf, medical services funds, things like that. Occasionally there are bonds that fund capital improvement projects, as well as other types of funding like ramp grants, and sometimes things like RDA, TIF funds can fund CIP projects. So I'll go over with you. This is what the council has looked at. This is when you've seen the capital improvement plan during this budget season. So starting in May and going throughout the work sessions in May, you looked at each department's capital improvement plans with their budget, capital improvement projects with their budget throughout May. And then on June 2nd, a public hearing was set for this evening. And then later in fall, as we've done the last few years, we'll come back to the council with a CIP ranking survey so that you can fund any projects that are not fully funded or not yet complete. You can rank them, and we send those on to the administration who looks at that and considers that when they're formulating the next year's CIP. Okay, state code, Utah State Code, it says that no public project can be built unless it conforms to the city's general plan. And then that leads sort of to city code, which we've got written in our city code that the CIP goes to the Planning Commission before it comes to the city council. And what the Planning Commission does is they make a determination they look at all the projects and make a determination if they comply with the general plan. So this year you can see on April 1st, the Planning Commission looked at that and they forwarded a determination of compliance with a few exceptions that we've talked about. But the one that I'll note right now is it's a project called EN017, and that's, I think you're familiar with it, the 1100 North and Monroe traffic signal. There's one proposed there, and there was some funding that was proposed this upcoming fiscal year, so 27. $335,000 were proposed for that, and the Planning Commission looked at the community plan and said, hey, this actually calls for a roundabout in this location, and so that caused a little bit of an issue. However, looking at that with you and with the finance team, we've said, okay, since it doesn't yet comply with the existing general plan, that funding will be taken out so that when Plan Ogden is approved, potentially later on this year or next year, that project can be brought back and can be determined to be compliant and funded. There are a couple of other projects that were noted in the Planning Commission review. These are determined to be compliant, but just a few notes. The Planning Commission would like to see these projects be brought back to them as funding is proposed or as more specific plans are brought forward. They said that specifically for project EN030. It's quite a big project, and there's not currently any street plans for them to review, so they'd like to look at those. So yeah, just a couple of projects, the other projects that were referenced in their determination. So here is a breakdown of the projects, and as you can see here, there's quite a few projects. I do want to just acknowledge the work that went into this from administration, all the department, I'm sure the executive directors and division directors and the finance folks put a lot of work into this document. So I believe it's a 282-page document. It has a lot of projects in it. This year, there is 61 total projects. You can see there's 11 of them that are new, and the total funding proposed is $245 million over a 5-year period. Looking at the project types, so you can see there's what's called perpetual projects and one-time projects. Perpetual projects are those projects sort of like street maintenance that are ongoing, that need to be done every year. You can see that it's broken out. We've got 35 perpetual projects, 24 one-time projects and 2 ramp projects. So I've got, you can see here, here's a breakdown of the funding. So here are the breakdown of the funding from the general fund, the different general fund funds. You can see the first year, so FY27, which is in what's proposed to be funded in this budget that Glenn will go over in a minute. For the general fund, after breaking out all those different departments, you can see total general fund for FY27, you were looking at about 22 million. We also can show you the future plan fundings for the remaining 4 years of those projects, and then the total project funding from the general fund funds. So here's the same breakdown, but for enterprise funds, if you're interested. So you can see the total for total for the enterprise funds for FY27 is 19 million. And you can see the future and the total project funding as well. And then for all funds, you see that there's, combining with the general fund, it's 41 million. Future plan funding, we're at 203 million. And then total for 5 years for all the funds is 245. So here's a breakdown of what is on the left. It's actually what's in the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, what's proposed to be funded for FY27. And on the right, you can see what's in the actual budget. And the reason there's a difference there is there's, I think we talked about it a little bit in a work session, but there's a $600,000 ramp grant that hasn't, that's anticipated but hasn't yet been received, so that's why it's not in the budget. Here is a breakdown. In years past, that list has been quite a bit longer. One thing I'll note is that it's a little bit shorter this year because about 30 projects were consolidated with other projects. That's something that we've discussed in work session. The part of the reasoning for that was to allow projects to have a broader scope. The city code states that anytime an amendment is made to a specific project, it has to come back to the council for approval. And the administration explained that they felt that by making some of these projects a little bit more broad, they would have the freedom to use money for specific projects that are tied together without necessarily having to come back to the council. But again, that does make each project a little bit more broad. But it does fit on this slide a little bit better with only 60 projects as compared to last year's, I think, 92. So, yeah. But in this list that's in the packet, you can see all of this information here on the screen, like project number, the mayor's ranking of the project, the total project cost, future funding plan, things like that. And there's it a little bit better. It actually fits on the screen this time, which is kind of cool. So hopefully, hopefully someone's looking at all this stuff and getting something out of that. So that's what we've prepared for you. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Steve?
Yes, Chair. I'm just trying to go through the small print.
That's really small print, by
Ooh,
the way.
tell me. What specifically for the CIP for management services? And that's just kind of, I'm trying to honestly, I'm in the document right now. But what are those projects in consideration? And I'm bringing this up in consideration that department is being downsized.
Yeah, that's a good question. So
or it's up for consideration to be downsized.
Let me see if I can get a better.
And I'm in the packet. I just my eye's not going towards it.
No, it's not any help. I wish I had. I should have just brought my laptop up. So your question is about the public services projects?
Management.
Management services projects. Okay, let's see. Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. So it's typically going to be under facilities. So any facilities projects that you see in there are going to be management services projects. I believe there is also one under Union Station. And I know we've got some folks in administration in management services that could probably speak to that a little bit as well.
I'll just keep looking through the document and see if I can look for those.
Okay, so yeah, and I can go over the specifics with you too. Let me see if I can pull that
up. Because did you just say it's facilities related?
Yeah.
Okay. I will glance through this again and see if anything catches my eye.
Okay. So I'm looking at them. So I've got, there's FL007, it's called General Facilities Improvements. FL002, Mount Ogden Peak Restoration. And then US034, Union Station Improvements was also, I believe, a management services project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
This also is a public hearing. If you'd like to address the council with regards to the 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan, now would be the time.
Joseph Blahman, Ogden resident. I'm certainly getting my exercise tonight. One recommendation I'd make is that spreadsheet. I'd do that in 3 different sections so it's visible so that we can see what it is. I used to do a lot of scheduling through SureTrack, and we sometimes purposely would make it that small so you could hide the float time, because we always felt like general contractors own the float in a project that you're doing. But just so the transparency with the public, you can see what's on there if you don't get the copy of it or go to the website. Just a recommendation.
Thanks, Joseph. I do believe that it is a document that can be zoomed in on the packet, so. But up here, you're right, you can't read that. That's for sure.
Also, if anyone is looking at it, Chair, it's on page 14 of the PDF.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion by Vice Chair Graff and seconded by Councilmember Lundell to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think that was unanimous. All right. This is an action item, so we'll look for motion if there's no discussion.
Chair, regarding proposed ordinance 2026-9, approving the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 27 through 2031, I move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Graff, seconded by Councilmember Lundell to approve or to adopt ordinance 2026-9. This is a voice or a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember Washington,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lundell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. All right. Next item is a proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 final budget. Mr. Symes, welcome back.
Thank you very much. So one more from me, and then you can hear about some fun stuff from Lori. So if you can bear with me for a few minutes, hers is much more exciting. So as you mentioned, this is the public hearing for the final budget. I will note that this presentation will cover all 4 of those action items, so the council goals and guidelines, the financial principles, the salary schedules, and the final budget itself. And we'll touch on all of those as we go through. So this presentation is a little bit different from what I've given twice now, a couple of weeks ago and then a couple of weeks before that. So because I've done that, I'll keep these first couple of items a little bit shorter, but we will touch on the Schedule A1 changes, the certified tax rate, which we did get and which I will go over, and then toward the bottom there, the financial principles, the goals and guidelines, and then those additional budgets that we'll touch on. So as far as, let's see, let me get the clicker to work here. The budget resources, again, I won't spend as much time as I did a couple of weeks ago on this, but those resources are available with the mayor's budget book, with the presentation on the 5th, the line item budgets, agenda packet material, department-specific budget information, the staff presentations, and of course the audio and video recordings of the work sessions and the council meetings. And these are the primary locations, so the city's budget page, the city's agendas and minutes page under the city council, and then the council's budget page, which is a separate budget page from the main city budget page. With the council's review, you had a chance to look at budget or budget elements through the last 7 work sessions through May and June. And you've had a number of opportunities to talk about the changes, potential changes, hear from department directors, and go over this information. And you've had a couple of actions so far. So you did set the public hearing on the tentative budget. You adopted the tentative budget with those Schedule A changes on the 2nd, and then set a number of public hearings for tonight. And then tonight, you've gone through a number of these already. So you've gone through the public hearings for the enterprise fund transfers, the municipal officers' compensation, and the capital improvement plan. And we are at the last couple of items here with the salary schedules and the final budget, which include the A1 changes, the staffing documents, and the certified tax rate. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself, just one slide. So there are a couple of significant budget policies that we like to point out in what is being proposed. So there is no property tax increase. The proposal is for you to adopt the county-provided certified tax rate. There is $2 million of unused wage and benefits from previous years that will be carried forward and pay for the same thing in FY27. And there are a couple of minor changes to the financial principles and the budget goals and guidelines. I don't consider them significant, but there are a couple of changes, and we'll touch on those in a few minutes. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that with the tentative budget, that's the budget that you would compare the final budget to. So the budget was proposed to you with the proposed budget. You adopted the tentative budget, so that sets the new numbers. And then any changes beyond that that would go into the Schedule A1 are reflective compared to the tentative budget, not the proposed budget. So this was your first checkpoint with the tentative budget. And with those Schedule A1 changes, so you've talked about these over the last couple of work sessions. There are some that were council requested, some that were proposed by administration, but I'll go through all of those. So the total is about $6.5 million of an increase to the budget as proposed. The first change is moving $700,000 from the Parks Acquisition Fund just to a holding account. This impacts the CIP fund, but it is budget neutral because you're just moving money from one place to the other. This primarily has to do with the Taylor Canyon School property acquisition. This is more than is needed for the discussion of the purchase of that property, but all of that money is being moved to a holding account until you all have a chance to talk about that a little bit more. The next one is an increase to interest income related to some trails funding. This was a request from the council to go from $30,000 to $100,000. So that would be a $70,000 increase in the general fund. And the next change, also related to the general fund, is the use of fund balance to cover lower than expected state homeless mitigation grant funding. And again, that's about a $195,000 increase, and that is related to the general fund. For the water utility fund, there is a proposed use of fund balance for about $3.5 million for increased projects related to pipe replacement, and then an increase in interest income related to some maintenance for some refuse trucks. This is $100,000 and would impact the refuse utility enterprise fund. And then in the airport enterprise fund, there were some fees that didn't quite make it through the budget process to get considered in time for this. So you'll see those in the coming months. But those revenues were already programmed into the budget. So in order to address that, so you're not programming revenue for fees that you haven't approved yet, the proposal would be to move $280,000 just to a contingency account to hold that until you have a chance to look at those fees. So that, again, is budget neutral because it's just moving from one place to another, but that does impact the airport enterprise fund budget. The next change is an increase in the Fleet and Facilities Enterprise Internal Service Fund, for lease proceeds to purchase some heavy equipment. And the last two are increases to the fire grants and the police grants related to that homeless mitigation fund, and a $160,000 increase in miscellaneous grants for fire, and just over $202,000 for police. So with all of those changes, these are the new numbers for your final budget, about $307.6 million. So you see those first four lines, those were all the ones that were impacted by these changes. The general fund, all of the enterprise funds, just collectively, this is just a total for all of those, the internal service funds and the miscellaneous grants. The rest of those stayed the same compared to the tentative budget. And so you have an overall change of about $17.7 million, or about 6.12% over the adopted fiscal year 26 budget. So I'm going to stop right there, actually, and then go back one. Does anybody have any questions about those numbers before I move on to the certified tax rate?
Any questions for Mr. Symes? Okay.
Thank you. So next up is the certified tax rate. And this is the piece that I had not presented before because we did not have this number. We do now, so I want to go through the certified tax rate process and how that's calculated and what those numbers are for Ogden City for this year. So state code defines that certified tax rate as the rate that will provide the same ad valorem property tax revenue for a taxing entity as was budgeted by the taxing entity for the prior year. So in other words, that certified tax rate allows a taxing entity to receive the same property tax revenue from the previous year plus the new growth. So the new growth is on top of that. And I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. There was a question about the certified tax rate. The certified tax rate system and the property tax system is a revenue-driven system. So the rate comes after, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the way that this is defined is it allows that taxing entity to receive the same revenue. So if you were asking for additional revenue, that's when you have to go through the truth in taxation process. You get a new rate. But this allows the taxing entity to have that same revenue from the year before. And this is calculated based on the taxable value of the whole entire city. So as the taxable value increases, that rate decreases to create that same revenue. The opposite is also true, which happened a few times over the last 20 or 25 years, where the taxable value of the city actually decreased and the rate went up to produce that same amount of revenue. But because the city was not requesting any additional revenue, the city didn't have to go through the truth in taxation process to have that rate increase. So that's just a point I like to try to clarify that, again, this is a revenue-driven system, not a rate-driven system. So you go through the truth in taxation process if you are requesting additional revenue, not necessarily a different rate. But with all of that, there is no inflationary adjustment built into the calculation. So it is the same revenue as the year before without a CPI calculation.
So Glenn, I think if you could kind of drill on that one a little bit more, I think that's the thing where people get confused because their property taxes seem to go up every year, and they don't, and so they think that there's an inflationary process built into that tax rate. And
and that really is related to the county's assessment of their individual property. So I'll see you you'll see in the next couple of slides how that number is created. And you'll see it's sort of at the macro level. So it's two really big numbers that create that tax rate, and that one single tax rate, then it gets applied to everybody, and everybody's property gets assessed. Some go way up, some go down, and so that one single tax rate gets applied to everybody, so it affects everybody differently.
most of us wish we'd see that down thing more often.
Yes.
So, okay.
Definitely.
All right, thanks, Glenn.
So when calculating that certified tax rate, if you go onto the state website, you can't see it there, but I think it's, oh, I just missed a page here. I can't see it on there either. I can't see it there. I'm too old. I needed my glasses. I didn't bring them. But anyway, if you go onto the state website, you can see this calculation, and I won't go through the whole thing, but it does break down just to this formula here, where the budgeted revenues get divided by the taxable value, and again, that's what creates the rate. And in Ogden City, this is what these numbers look like for the next fiscal year. So $21.5 million in budgeted revenue divided by the $10.3 billion valuation gets our certified tax rate at 0.002086. And I mentioned the new growth is on top of that. So the 21.5 million plus just under 345,000 in new growth gives us our total revenue of $21.8 million as it relates to the certified tax rate. And then here's just a chart showing how that certified tax rate has changed over the years. That orange line on the top shows what the city has adopted, and the blue line that you see dip down a couple of times, that is the county provided certified tax rate. So you see that big dip in 2016. Prior to that, we had a general obligation bond that was rolled into our certified tax rate that would be in the assessment. And so you see those first three numbers, that's the combined rate. And that 2015 was the last year that we had that GO bond on the books. And so that's where you see that big drop, is that GO bond dropped off. That was in 2016 was a certified tax rate that excluded that GO bond. At the time, the city's decision was to essentially just hold that rate as though that GO bond didn't go away. And that would be the 3103 rate. And then the next couple of years, the city decided to maintain that rate. So for 3 years in a row, we had that same 3103 certified tax rate. But you can see how that even dipped down the couple of years after that, and that does have to do with that overall taxable value of the entire city going up, and so that rate even came down from there. And then again in 2022 and 2024, and you can see the percentages of the increases there. And then on the far right, you can see this year's certified tax rate, that 2086, as it relates to the tax rates from the last 13 or 14 years. And as far as the total tax bill, this is the other factor that impacts a person's tax bill, is that there are a number of different taxing entities, and if any one of these proposes a tax increase, that's going to affect your overall bill. Even if Ogden City doesn't increase our property taxes, you know, an individual may see an increase just because another taxing entity may go through the truth and taxation process. So you see that the biggest chunk, that blue, that's about 55, 56%. That is the school district chunk. The orange color there is the city at 17.68. The green is Weber County. There are a number of different line items. So if you go to your actual tax bill, that's like 5 or 6 different lines that you all have to put all together to get that total county rate, and then a couple of other smaller taxing entities. But that's how it shakes out for the 2025 tax bill that we all paid back in November. We don't have these numbers yet for 2026 because obviously if a taxing entity is going to go through the truth and taxation process, we won't have all of these numbers until they go through all of that. So we won't see these numbers until August or September.
Do we know if any of those taxing entities are proposing a tax increase?
I don't know if the school district is this year.
I don't either.
No, so nobody that I know of is.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Hey, Chair, can I ask also, just on that new growth, I can't remember if if we had an estimate on what the new growth might be and how that 345,000 compares to what we maybe were estimating.
Yeah, the numbers did come in a little bit lower than we had anticipated. Our finance folks looked at that and decided that we probably would be okay if we didn't make that adjustment with the final budget, because our actual collections have tended to come in higher than what they're projecting for us. That and the combination of some of the interest income, they didn't feel like we needed to make the change right now. If we go through, mid-year, if an adjustment needs to be made, you would see that with a budget amendment. But it did come in just.
Okay, I just couldn't remember what the number was that we were looking at. If it was close to the 345 or if it was, where it was.
Yeah, and they can, somebody from finance can probably answer that. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, so we'll see if we can get them after.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, any questions on the certified tax rate before I?
Any questions about that? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So for the personnel changes, we've talked about that a little bit tonight, but there are proposed in the budget 10 positions to be eliminated, 7 positions to be added. That would put us at a net -3 for total, and that would put us at a total of 698 authorized full-time employees for the city. There are proposed 3 reclassifications, 6 title changes, 4 transfers between departments, and as I touched on earlier, the increases include the 2.18% COLA for all employees and then up to the 4% merit for non-sworn employees, the 4% step increase for sworn fire and police. And one of the things I like to do at this point is to just stop for a second and show how that trickles throughout the budget. So you've got a number of different documents that you approve. These personnel changes kind of affect all of these different documents, so I like to just walk through and show where these changes appear if you are wanting to track this. So you do have 3 approvals, or they show up in 3 different places. The final budget, of course, that would have the appropriations for the wage and benefit increases. It would show the merit and COLA increases in each of the departments. So that's the money, right? That shows the increase in the actual budget. The staffing document that you do approve along with the budget, so that is an attachment to the budget ordinance, that authorizes the 698 full-time employees, and it also captures the changes related to the grade and title for each position, the transfers, the division name changes for all of those positions. And then a separate approval that you will approve at the same time as the budget, but not in the same motion, is the salary schedules, and that approves the salary ranges for each of those titles and grades. And then, as I mentioned earlier in a previous presentation, that COLA then gets reflected with those salary ranges. So I thought that would be helpful if you kind of see where all throughout the budget, where those changes touch. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the projects since Steve went over that already. So this is just a summary. About just under $41 million proposed for projects in FY27. There are a couple of changes. Again, as Steve mentioned, the $335,000 that was moved to a holding account, that was done with your tentative budget with Schedule A. And then the $3.5 million that's proposed in additional water line replacement funding in the water utility, that's proposed for approval with the Schedule A1 with the final budget. And then just to briefly touch on the financial principles and the goals and guidelines. The financial principles we talked about, I believe, earlier in May, and the goals and guidelines we talked about in a work session last week. So just one minor change related to the 5-year financial model for the financial principles, and then some changes to add a few of the goals that we've heard from department directors for this year in the goals and guidelines. So community risk reduction, proactive policing, Lester Park, the well-being survey, and then some technological efficiencies, and then just a couple of wording and stylistic updates. So those are the changes that are proposed for the financial principles and the goals and guidelines. You have a couple of other budgets that you approve by reference. So they are not part of the Ogden City budget, but they do get approved along with the final budget because the city is the fiscal agent. So you can see the Weber Morgan Narcotics Strike Force there. That didn't change year over year. And then the Marshall White Community Center Special Purpose Entity, this FY27 will be the first full year that we have budgeted funds in there. So you can see that change from 0 to that $172,000 in that budget. I'm almost done. So just to reiterate what's on your agenda for consideration tonight, adoption of the financial principles and the goals and guidelines, the salary schedules, that does include elected officials. So because that COLA does include all employees, that would be elected officials also. So just that 2.18% change. There's no merit increase or any other proposal to change, but that COLA does change all the positions, so that would change the elected officials as well. The non-merit special employees, that does include the municipal officers, which we talked about a few minutes ago, the regular or the merit employees, and then the sworn police and fire salary schedules, and that does include their steps. And then the last approval you have is for the final budget itself. That includes the Schedule A1 changes with the $6.5 million proposed increase, the 698 total full-time employees with the staffing document, and then that 0.002086 certified tax rate. Do you have any questions for me?
Any more questions for Glenn? Good job.
Thank you.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way this is going to work from here on is we're on item E right now on the agenda, and so there's those 4 items under the agenda, 1 through 3 and 4. We will be addressing each one of those individually with a motion, but so if you have input on any of those 4 items, now would be the time to come forward and give us your input.
Joseph Bauman, Ogden City resident. The couple of items on page 5 and 6 of your work packet that you have, it talks about the verbiage about the elimination of several positions and added positions. And the mayor several months ago made the commitment last month when the tentative budget was presented about adding the 5 new firefighters. And that's shown on there, however, in verbiage. But when you go through page 5 and 6, there's no documentation. It shows the police, but it doesn't relate back to the fire department. It shows where they're going to be related in with the code enforcement. Then when you go down to the community and economic development, and you get down to the building department, it doesn't show the reduction from code enforcement leaving the building department going to the fire department to help out so that they can be in connection with each other. And I think it's important that should have been shown in here to show that as a line item in that documentation with the fire department, and then the reduction in the code enforcement, because I know there was, in the budget, I saw a number in there was like $10,000 or something for some each new vehicle that the code enforcement people would require. And that was in the tentative budget, but I think it's important that that be shown in here to be transparent with the actual transfers, because you're going to lose people in the building department, but you're eliminating that pretty much and moving it over to the fire department where it should be. That's the only comment I have.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. Anyone else? Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so we would need a motion to close this, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. So let's get Mr. Baumann an answer to that. I think that it was listed as interdepartmental change, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the actual staffing documents were changed in the previous fiscal year, so those were amended. So going forward, if you compared the staffing documents from FY26 and FY27, you would see those changes. But they weren't proposed to be changed in this budget because you had already approved those changes to the staffing documents for FY26.
Okay.
A month or so ago. So.
All right. And I think that was there any other personnel change issues that you were concerned about? I think I wrote it down, but I think that was all it was, wasn't it?
You pulled people out of the code enforcement, out of the building department, and moved them to the fire department.
Right, and that's what he was just addressing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that change had already been made before this budget was proposed.
Okay.
But yeah, those documents are reflective of those if you compare FY26 to FY27.
Well, that's not true. That's for the 27.
The ongoing funding is for FY27, but that change was made.
Yeah, that was prior. Okay. All right. Well, let's address the four individual items at this point then.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2026-6, approving the goals and guidelines for the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff, to adopt resolution 2026-6. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Washington.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
We can't hear you, Councilmember Ritchie. Did we lose him? I guess we don't have him. So
We
let's,
can continue.
okay.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. Okay, let's move on to the financial principles now.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt proposed joint resolution 2026-2, establishing governing financial principles relating to the general financial management, user fees, capital improvements, debt, investments, and reserves.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff, to adopt resolution 2026-2. This also is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie. Is he still not on? Okay. Councilmember Washington.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That also passes. Okay, next is the proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 salary schedules.
Chair, regarding proposed ordinance 2026-10, adopting salary schedules for employees of Ogden City, I move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Graff, seconded by Councilmember Lundell to.
That was Lopez.
Lopez, sorry. To adopt proposed ordinance 2026-10. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Washington.
Nay.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff.
Yes.
Chair Heyer.
Aye, that passes. And we'll give Councilmember Washington a minute to explain her no vote if she'd like.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. And we'll move on to fiscal year 2026 to 2027 final budget.
Chair, regarding proposed ordinance 2026-14, adopting the final budget for fiscal year 26-27, I move for adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Kraft, seconded by
Lopez.
Councilmember Lopez. All right, this is also a roll call vote.
Councilmember Washington,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lundell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That also passes. All right, now we're moving on to item F. This is the proposed fiscal year 2026 to 2027 arts grant funding proposal.
Chair Heyer, before we start moving forward, I need to excuse myself because I have a conflict of interest with this topic.
Okay, Councilmember Lopez declaring a conflict of interest.
Yes, because I sit in different boards with the people
Okay.
who is presenting.
That's going to be.
I can speak very slowly. Chair, I will
see if we can get
recuse myself from this conversation as that I am a co-director of Good Company Theater that has received, been awarded grants from Ogden City Arts. And I will just offer that as I recuse myself.
Okay, so we have two council members that are recusing themselves, and I think we got Councilmember Ritchie back on. So we'll give them a minute to vacate the chambers. And then we'll welcome Lori Buckley for the
you.
presentation.
Thank you for having me, council members, Chair Heyer, Mayor Nadolski, and Mayor. It's good to see you tonight. I'm here tonight to present the recommendations for funding for the fiscal year 27, but they actually cross over 26 and 27 arts grants. And we'll just jump right into it. So your role in this process is to make the determination that the projects and programming that this funding covers, that the public is receiving more benefit from them than the dollars amount that we're putting into the grants. The grants are rigorously reviewed in a scoring process. These are just a few of the criteria that we look at when we're reviewing the applications that come in. We look at their artistic mission, and we look at the number of creatives and the community members that are being served. We make sure that the programming is opening for the entire community to participate. We want to see that the applicant has a strong ability to actually implement the project, that they have a past, they have experience in producing, let's say, theater productions or, whatever they're applying for a grant for. We want to see that they have marketing in a great idea for how they're going to market their program or projects. They have a solid budget that balances and that their project aligns with the goals and objectives of the Ogden City Arts Master Plan. So here's a comparison of the past 3 years, including this upcoming year. So you can see that the funding request is usually $100,000 to $150,000-ish over the available funds. So it is a very competitive grant cycle. We do have a lot more asks than we have money to fund to the grantees. And here is our overview. This last cycle, we received 30 grant applications. And upon review and scoring, the Arts Advisory Committee is recommending that 23 of those grants be recommended for funding. In general support, we received 9 applications, and all 9 of those applications are being recommended for funding in the total amount of $78,500. In the project support category, we had 21 applications received, and 14 of those 21 applications are being recommended for funding in the amount of $79,800. So in total, we're looking at funding 23 applications for $158,300. That is $150 from the annual allocation and $8,300 from previous fiscal year rollover money. So these are our general support applicants. These are strong pillars in our community. I'm sure you're very familiar by looking at this list. I'm not going to go into each of these in detail. We went over these in work session, and the information is in your packets. But a general support applicant must be an arts-based nonprofit. They are not able to ask for more than 15% of their previous year's annual budget. And so as you can see, the amount requested from these 9 applications was $128,700. And we are recommending a funding amount of $78,500, which is 50% of this year's grant money that's available. Here are our project support applicants, the first 7. The next 7 are on the next slide. Our project support applications can be are available for projects only. The project must be arts-based. It must benefit the citizens of Ogden, and they can't ask for more than 50% of their project budget. And those applicants, their total ask was $138,239 of the ones being recommended for funding, totaling $79,800, which is 50% of the funding allocation. So this year we have a 50-50 split of our funds, not exactly, but pretty dang close if we round to those numbers. So $78,000 for general support, $79,000 to project support, and that is our recommendations for this year. So this action needed tonight is for you to consider adopting proposed resolution 2026-5 in support of fiscal year 27 arts grants recommendations. Do you have any questions for me on this?
Any questions for Lori? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If you would like to address the council on the arts grants funding, now would be the time. Okay, go ahead.
Seeing no motion in the chambers, I move to close the public hearing.
And I'll second.
A motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's our 4. All right. All right, let's get a motion before we lose him again.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2026-5.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to adopt resolution 2026-5. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lundell,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer,
Aye. That passes.
Yay.
Barely.
Sorry about my internet connection. It was a little spotty there for a second, but I'll probably drop off here and catch up on the rest of the meeting later. Thank you for letting me join this way.
Thanks, Councilmember Ritchie. Have a nice time. Okay, now is time for public comments. So please come to this is for comments on any topic.
Chair,
yes, sir.
Want to hang on for a second while we get our other 2 council members back?
Oh, yeah, let's get it back. Well, I kind of assumed they were
Listening.
but
That would be
let's give them a second. Oh, I guess
Why do they have to leave?
that's part of the rules and norms that we've
That's a
established.
city ordinance?
It's our rules and norms. It's so that they don't chill the discussion that happens here.
Oh,
That's why.
so they don't blink or wink
Yeah,
or that
they
stuff,
don't give
nod
us the
their
stink
head,
eye during the
Winky
conversation.
blinky, that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I got it.
Welcome back. All right.
All right, Joseph Bauman, Ogden resident. What I'm here about is the water. Brady Hurd is on the Ogden River Association as a trustee, as I am. And he came last week and gave us a presentation about what Ogden City, in conjunction with Weber Basin and the rest of them, what they want to do with the 36-inch water line coming down the canyon. And the water field up at the Browning setup, you get about 50 to 60% of the drinking water comes out of that water field, the water wells that comes over. And the one thing that Brady had a spreadsheet that he gave us and showed the different costs and stuff, but one item that wasn't on there that I don't think anybody's thought about is that you could do what is called a double-walled coffer system, where you don't have to drain Pine View Reservoir. And I watched the YouTube with your workshop from last week with Justin Anderson, and what he said was conflated a little bit, that he said that the water is stored in Willard Bay, and he almost made it sound like we're gonna get that water back. In Ogden City, it's gone. When it goes into Willard Bay, Weber Basin owns it. And they're happy that if we do drain the dam, and they'll be a strong proponent to do that, because they're short on water as it is right now. That's why they didn't turn on. They turned on a month late, and they're gonna turn off a month early because they don't have the water to do that. And I had a comment, 1,000 lives live without love, but not one lives without water. And the proposal I'd highly recommend is not drain Pine View, because if we have another snow melt system like we had this year in the spring, we're fortunate because we closed down the water early last year in Pine View systems, and we had a good carryover. And had we not done that, we would be hurting this year in Pine View water systems with South Ogden, Weber Box Elder, and Ogden City. So I'd recommend that you look at doing something different with water when they get ready to start doing that. I know the contractor's anxious to get done and closed up, Whitaker. But I think there are other ways to do it, and building that dike across there and then draining the water and sending it down the Ogden River in the canal system out to Willard, I don't think is the answer. I think it needs to be taken a hard look at, and we're not hurting for water with drinking water. I mean, if we don't do that project till next year and see what next winter brings us, because the projection that we're looking at with the El Nino and everything, we're gonna be in the same situation next year with the snowpack. So I'd highly recommend that you look at that and work with Justin Anderson and Brady Hurd in the water and before you make a final decision on it.
Thanks, Joseph.
Good evening. My name's David Belknap. I live in West Haven, and I'm a co-leader of Indivisible Ogden. Before I begin, I want to say to the council members, Mayor Nadolski, I hope you and your families are all doing well. I genuinely mean that. We will not agree on everything, and there are times when I strongly disagree with some of your decisions and priorities. However, disagreement does not prevent us from being civil and discussing the issues facing our community. Without honest dialogue, let me say that again, without honest dialogue, progress is impossible. Many people ask, what is Indivisible Ogden and what do we stand for? We are a grassroots organization of volunteers working together to restore a representative democracy that honors the Bill of Rights, adheres to the Constitution, and protects fair elections. Promote community engagement through training, educational events, and rallies that raise public awareness. Support immigrants, vulnerable people, and the rights to health care and housing through advocacy, outreach, and assistance. Hold elected officials accountable through letters, phone calls, public comment, and peaceful protest. We believe that people who commit serious crimes should be held accountable through due process and the rule of law. We believe in secure borders, effective immigration laws, and our moral obligation to treat all people with dignity and respect. We believe in facts, evidence, and honesty. There's that word again, honesty. Not simple accepting a person's word without accountability. And we are committed to peaceful, nonviolent action in everything we do. I want to thank the mayor for his comments last week. While I disagree with much of what was said, I appreciate the honesty. It is important that immigrants in our community understand where the city and the Ogden Police Department stand regarding cooperation with ICE. Based on the mayor's own statements, he is fully supportive of ICE's mission and actions. I believe that support extends to policies that separate families, parents away from their children and leave spouses and loved ones wondering if they will ever see each other again. I believe it creates fear in immigrant communities where people become afraid to report crimes, seek medical care, attend school functions, and participate in public life. I believe it treats many people whose only offense is a civil violation or worse, false federal charges, as if they are dangerous criminals, the so-called worst of the worst trope. I believe it extends to tactics that too often lack transparency and accountability, and I believe it raises serious moral questions about who and how we choose to treat our neighbors and our fellow human beings. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome.
Larry B. Rentmeister. Started plumbing at the age of 15, which was 72 years ago. Retired this year. When I was 12, my grandmother gave me a prophecy. She said, I don't think she hit nail quite on the head, but the time will come that on the Pacific coast, there will be such a commotion that people will leave. We will not be able to build houses fast enough. We're building a lot of houses. And you'll start seeing huge tent cities. And she said huge twice. We can see that there are a tremendous number of people moving from other places in the country, which is great. I'm concerned about water. This year, 50% of normal. Who knows what the future will bring? I talked to planning, and in 25, or I forget which month, there were 2,221 units being worked on. That's a lot of people moving in. In regards to water bill, my granddaughter and grandson used 2,500 gallons. She likes to sit and stand in the shower for the longest time. Waste. We can't afford waste. I took their water bill, 2,500, divided it into the $35.70. That's a little over 1 cent per gallon. I took my water bill for just me. I took the 300 gallons and divided it into 30.19. 10 cents.
Mr. Rentmeister, we've run out of time.
My concern again is water. What is the council doing to educate the public about conservation?
Thanks, Mr. Rentmeister.
Hello, the kingdom of heaven has come near to you. Mr. James Joseph Dixon, Ogden resident. Hello, City Council. Wanting to follow up on two things locally that I've emailed y'all on before. In regards to bicycle safety, there's many gutters in Ogden that seem to be very steep. And some I've noticed have been marked with red spray paint or red paint. I think all of them need to be marked with bright color for bicycle safety. And there's a court building in town that has nice architecture, and on its entrance there are steps though, and they don't seem functional. They kind of seemed like a stumbling block to me, and a person inside, an employee, mentioned a lot of people have complained about it. I think there could be a way to bring more attention to the steps that are raised so that people don't come to them as a stumbling block that doesn't detract from the beauty of the architecture, so I'd be willing to help out with that. Otherwise, I've seen y'all's Christmas lights are great. I've seen a spherical like Earth, though, on display in the grass. I object. The truth I've found proof for is that the Earth is relatively flat. And the Statue of Liberty has held a torch and has had a broken chain at its ankle. The United States American dollar and coin currency has used the image of many U.S. presidents. Schools have taught a spherical Earth and a moon that can be landed on, and intangible planets, and a fiery sun in outer space and evolution, and the Big Bang Theory and dinosaurs, and that magma from volcanoes comes from a fiery core below the Earth. Movies and TV shows have encouraged the belief of extraterrestrial aliens, as well as the secrecy of Area 51. And politicians have discussed the sightings of many unidentified flying objects, or recently changed to unidentified aerial phenomenon, or changed again to unidentified anomalous phenomena. I don't consent to the Statue of Liberty actually symbolizing Satan. I do not consent to the President of the United States being such, and who has played many roles, like General Patton and Mick Jagger. And the angels, it seems, as potentially could be an appropriate term to give them, have been shape-shifting and deceiving many. Like Elon Musk was the original Superman, and also Warner von Braun. And so all this can be found at Fittest Flat Earther on YouTube and Spotify. But I object to these things. I'd like to live in a society where there's more truth and transparency in the name of Jesus Christ. And the sun source, it seems like there's a relatively flat Earth with a dome overhead. Oh, maybe to be continued. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Hi, Kayla Henriksen. I live in Ogden. I am up here talking about my continued concern about the ICE hold room still. I think it's reasonable to say that the way people have been treated in hold rooms and detention centers across the country has been horrific. It is really scary to see what is happening across the country pertaining to ICE. As of right now, there's no concrete reason to believe that the hold room here in Ogden is treating its detainees well. I appreciate the efforts of the council to look into the safety and dignity that's being followed there. I would like to ask that you continue to look into this hold room and put pressure on them. I remember Councilman Lundell, you secured a fire inspection for us, and I appreciate that, but it turned into like a drive-by outside fire inspection, and that was not sufficient. The original agreement, it didn't seem like it was able to be obtained by the attorney, and they just asked that we believe that it was there, and that's not sufficient either. So I understand that many of you feel like your hands are tied, but I urge you to get creative in order to ensure the safety of our detained neighbors. The hold room is not doing enough to prove that it's safe, so we have to step in to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Thordorosh, Ogden resident. Earlier during the work session, there was discussion regarding a RDA project. RDA doesn't have public comment, so I'm just gonna say it here. There was discussion regarding the value of the project's residents, basically saying that we would want to purposely build higher income housing to de-incentivize low-income people being here to increase Ogden's revenue. And the pitch of the construction was for artist lofts, for people, and artists famously don't make a lot of money. And I think that it's important to consider the aspect that it targets lower income, but not fully low income people as an element of the art part of the art loft and as a part of the Ogden's valuing of artists and the arts, because artists don't make that much money, and more importantly, the sort of demographic that would be taking up the housing is not maybe necessarily artists, but it's probably people my age, because we don't make a lot of money. So I worry that this targeting of saying that we don't want low income, we want higher income, we want condos, et cetera, is actually accidentally saying that we are not going to build the infrastructure for young people to live here. I much preferred Lundell's perspective, which questioned if we should have housing that better fit the market and better fit the different communities. I thought those were valid concerns. And I'm going to addendum the previous comment, which is I think that the reason why the council involved in any ICE activity should be looking at the CUP is for the clear breakages that ICE has had on the CUP agreement with Ogden City, that although there could be a moral argument against ICE, that is not the jurisdiction, what's the wrong word? That's not the place of Ogden City to make. It certainly could justify someone emotionally wanting to do such. But I think that the reason why we should revoke the CUP is clear in the text of the CUP document and recorded evidence both by Homeland Security themselves and by community members. Thank you.
Thanks, Thor. Okay, we have a hand online. Heath Sato.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Good timing there. My comments were also along the lines of what Thor just spoke about. I had the same concern when I was listening to the work session today. And so regarding that quote unquote artist housing that Lotus wants to build, I heard a couple of council members talk about lower income housing and saying it hurts our local economy. It was suggested that lower income people are even a burden. I don't think that was intentional, but that was the word was used, and it kind of hit pretty wrong. But I think this is economically backwards. Low income workers are not a financial drain. They're the literal engine of our downtown commerce. Our downtown restaurants, retail stores, hospitality venues, they can't open their doors without line cooks, servers, and artists. When we provide more affordable live-work housing right in the heart of downtown, we're directly stabilizing the labor supply for those tax-generating businesses. Creating more housing downtown that's affordable is an economic boon for our entire business district, keeping help wanted signs down and revenues up. So let's turn this around about how we're looking at this. Housing cost burden is what actually drains a local economy. When workers spend 50% or more of their paycheck on market rate rent, that market leaves our neighborhoods and goes straight to corporate landlords that quite often don't live here or spend money here. So housing that's more affordable downtown actually frees up immediate disposable income. That money is instantly reinvested right in the downtown area, spent on groceries, local shops, and downtown restaurants. So, you know, when we talk about this stuff, our service and creative workforce, they could live downtown instead of commuting from hours away. Doing that would drastically cut down on road wear, traffic congestion, and the need for even more massively expensive public parking infrastructure as our downtown grows. We've taken on enough debt with parking decks. Local housing means local dollars, less traffic, and a highly resilient city center. So in my opinion, opposing the Lotus project mainly on economic growth factors is completely backwards. Keeping out more housing that more people can afford doesn't protect our economy. It starves our local businesses of workers and customers. So let's look at the actual math. Look at the research on these issues that might not seem like make sense to you just on a common sense basis. And so let's invest in the people who create the pulse of the heart of Ogden. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath.
Emily Fox, Ogden resident. I didn't know I'd be touching base on living. I didn't watch the work session, but if you need to put a face to a starving artist who loves living downtown, you could put one to me. I lived in the art space, which was a lower income, like I had to apply and prove that I was poor to live there, but it allowed me flexible income to raise my 2 young kids, live downtown, and contribute to the downtown economy because I enjoyed the restaurants and Gateway Mall and everything because it was right next door to me. So if you need to put a face to who that benefits, I benefited from those kind of programs and housing for a good chunk of my 20s. But I am here to also just be that squeaky mosquito buzzing in your ear about the ICE CUP hold room, because the math does show that there's no way with the increase in amount of numbers that they aren't overcrowding those spaces, and overcrowding means that they're not taking care of people, they're not giving humane things, that I know they have been functioning in there doing fine for 2 decades, but times have changed, and so they need to readdress where they are holding people because the current conditions don't accommodate the number that is being documented as fact going through that space. And going back to something I touched base on a couple months ago about perception, even though as a city you can only do so much with federal things, the perception is important as well. And even if you revoke it or make motions to have it revisited and everything like that, it shows Ogden City that you care about this enough to even make the effort. So that is important as well. But thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Hi, Kim Haslam, another squeaky mosquito. I just wanted to update everyone that I attended a recent Planning Commission meeting and it went great. I was very impressed with the fact that the commissioners chose to hear from the 5 of us that were there when they didn't have to. And it was really encouraging because they seemed to understand the urgency that many of us are feeling regarding the conditional use permit violations at the Ogden ICE hold facility. I appreciate that this issue is being taken seriously by them, but I also left with many questions. My understanding is that the administration has initiated an investigation into these violations. If that's the case, I would like to know where that process stands. The public has spent months documenting concerns, gathering data, and bringing information forward. We deserve transparency about what actions are being taken and what the timeline is for addressing these violations. This issue is especially important because activity at the facility is unlikely to decrease. With $70 billion in federal funding being directed towards DHS and a 7,500 bed detention facility being developed in Salt Lake County, we should expect increased activity throughout the area. That makes local oversight and accountability more important than ever. I sent an email to everyone this week letting you all know that there were 9 detainees in the hold room at one time this week, which is 6 more than the limit of 3. I want to know if this will be looked into or what will be done. I was also troubled to hear Weber County Sheriff Arbonne recently state that, as he understands it, ICE is only going after the worst of the worst. Just in case that ideology also flows into Ogden City, I want it known the data available in Weber County does not support that claim. In fact, approximately 58% of individuals detained by ICE in Weber County have no criminal background. When public officials repeat narratives that are inconsistent with the data, it creates a misleading picture of what is actually happening in our community. Community members have spent countless hours researching records, reviewing data, attending meetings, and trying to participate in this process. We're not asking for special treatment, we're asking for transparency and consistent enforcement to the rules that apply to everyone. My hope is that City Council and administration will provide updates on the investigation into the conditional use permit violations and enforce any violations. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, looks like that's that. So, Mayor, would you like to address any of the? Oh, okay. I didn't see her a second. Teresa's iPhone.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. This is Teresa Bramwell. I had a chance to speak with James Ebert earlier this week. He's running for the Weber County Commission. And I spoke with him about the crime that I have experienced in the city of Ogden. I feel like I have been an extraordinary crime victim in East Central. I explained some of the situations that I had been involved in being a crime victim in East Central Ogden. And I wanted to know if he were elected to the Weber County Commission, what he was going to do about the crime and how he was going to fix it. And what he told me was interesting to me because I've never heard this before. He said that our jail, our Weber County jail, is basically being leased out to the state and to the federal government for their criminals in order to bring a profit to Weber County, which also does not allow the Weber County Jail to accept criminals from Weber County. I've never heard this before. I don't know where he would have gotten that information from. I was very disturbed by it because I feel like the people that I have been a crime victim of in East Central Ogden are people that should have been in jail, but were not in jail because they had a host of prior crimes that they had committed. I don't know how Ogden can help with this situation, but I just was really disturbed by that whole conversation I had with him about our Weber County Jail being rented to the highest bidder, which would obviously be state criminals or federal criminals, which is making it full. So we can't house our own Weber County criminals or criminals that should have been incarcerated from Ogden City, and that I feel should have definitely been incarcerated. Anyway, I don't know the answers to it. I would love it if the crime were to stop. I would love it if the criminals that need to be in jail could be in jail. And I don't know what the answers are, but I've heard a lot of people get up and talk about ICE. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. If you'd like to give me a call, I'd love to chat with you about that further. Is there anybody else? Okay, Mayor, would like to address any of those issues?
Sure. Before I do, I just want to thank the council for your support of Taylor Nielsen this evening. I'm glad you guys agree that he's the right choice for the right time. So look forward to working with him, and I look forward to you having the opportunity to continue to work with him. I also want to thank Mara for not just sticking by me, but by standing by Ogden. This is one of the best human beings I've ever been around. She is going to be missed as a chief administrative officer, but also as a human being. But thankfully, she lives in the neighborhood. It won't be going far because this is somebody that will always serve Ogden. Also want to say that the Mercy car has arrived, if you haven't seen it yet. Look forward to July 4th celebrations where we can unveil that again, the restored Mercy car, along with the march by our veterans who will be marching from here at the Municipal Gardens down to the Union Station to commemorate our nation's 250th, to unveil the restored Mercy car and to celebrate our freedoms. Joseph Bauman on the cofferdam, that's something that we're actually currently assessing. I didn't see the conversation Justin had with the council in the work session, but I've been in the loop and in a lot of meetings. In fact, tomorrow I've got a meeting with the wildlife and fisheries managers around the water levels. But you're right, once water goes to Pineview, or goes from Pineview to Willard, it won't be coming back. It is not lost in storage, but it is lost in storage to Pineview. That fact's not forgotten. The intention is not to drain the reservoir to do the pipeline. The intention is to work with water managers as they anticipate and project, and that's part of what I'm meeting with DWR about tomorrow, is looking at their water projections and their drawdowns and how the volume corresponds to elevation drops and where that elevation drop corresponds relative to the pipeline location. And we're looking at ways to help offset and mitigate the impacts to the fishery during those periods. But water managers are clearly telling us that they are expecting severe drawdown because of the drought scenario. And so we're trying to time our construction with those drawdowns so that we are not initiating the drawdown because of the water line, but if it's going to happen because of Mother Nature, that we can find a way to put our water line in and save money for Ogden City taxpayers. The cost and some of the estimates are as high as $6 million for the cofferdam. That would be on the water users if we went that route. I don't think that we should do that or have to pay that if there's not a need for it. And so we're trying to leverage that coordination and the timing as much as we possibly can so that if it's going to be drawn down, we'll cross and then because of natural reasons, not necessarily because of us. So that's the goal. More coordination and more data to come. But we're really keen on synchronizing the timing with our partners to make sure that we're not having an undue impact, if possible, and not costing the taxpayers more money that's not necessary. I do want to correct one statement that was made that there was this presumption that I support all activities of ICE, and I don't. What I said was that I do support the removal of violent criminals from our community. I think that we all should support that. You didn't hear me say I support sweeps and raids of houses of worship, schools, or workplaces. But then again, those things have not happened here in Ogden. So to say that I support all of those things is not what I said. I do want to say that, update on the special use permit and the review on the fire. It was not just a drive-by. When we drove by to look at it, we were specifically told by the public that there were some things, some insulation in the windows that they felt was a fire hazard. So we drove by and looked at it. Then we were told that there were other violations or that there should be another fire inspection on the whole building. So we went and did one. Then we came back here and we reported and we said that we found minor, very minor infractions, which was like a sign that was missing by an exit or something. They fixed it within days. They're fully compliant. And so we keep coming back and reporting back on the things that are asked of us, and we'll continue to. I said we'd follow up on the records that were of concern on the holding, and we have. And my police chief has sat and gone through and navigated their system and looked at their records. So far, he's comfortable that those overnight holds are data entry errors, but the next step would be to confirm them with the jail that received them on the dates that they supposedly did. So those next steps, I don't know when they can take place, but Chief is going to be looking into that, those possibilities or those options next. So far, we continue to go down each lead. We are not seeing things that are supporting what the data said that I'm just going off memory, so don't quote the numbers I'm about to reference, but I think it was 17 records, maybe it was 16 of the hundreds of records that were reviewed. Some of those records of the 17 happened during the Biden administration. Most of them happened during the Trump administration. So there's no arguing that there's more activity in the hold room than there was before. I don't think that's any secret given the change in the administration priorities at the national level. But what I wanted to report is that we continue to follow up and do the things that we said we would to look for issues of real wrongdoing. We have not found it yet. The data suggests otherwise, and we're looking for proof that refutes the data rather than just that's what they said. So we're still going down that road. We'll let you know what we find, if anything.
Mayor, can I follow up with you on just a couple of things there?
Hey, we'll give you time when he's done. Fair enough? Yep. Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say was the county jail capacity issue, and then I'm happy to answer whatever you have. There have been times in the past, distant past, especially probably during COVID, around capacity issues at the jail. We are not currently experiencing any capacity limits at the county jail. This is something I've actually talked to the chief about a couple of weeks ago. So the county can rent beds to federal agencies. The U.S. Marshals is the most common, I understand. I'm sure that's happening to some degree currently, but it's not pushing us to maximum capacity. So we do have the room for local offenders to be held after arrested. So just making that point. Sorry, happy to answer whatever you had.
Chair?
Okay, Councilmember Liddell.
Thanks. Thank you for following up on the overnight stays. I think that next step of reaching out to where they were received is great. Thank you for that. I think that's a step I hadn't thought of. So that's good. I think a couple of the other issues that were brought up or that people, I think even residents and community members have seen is the activity before and after the times in the conditional use and the amount of people being detained there that people have seen. So I think those are a couple follow-up items as well.
Yeah, actually, thanks for bringing it up. That's the first I'd heard of the 9 overnight, or the 9, not overnight, but the 9 at one time, 6 more than the capacity. It's the first I'd heard it. I don't think you sent me that email. If you did, I didn't see it. My apologies. Okay, I'll find it. But that was the first I'd heard of it, so we'll follow up.
Mayor, you may have already addressed this. I'm just genuinely curious if you yourself have toured the facility.
I have not.
Would you be willing to
That's
ask
fine.
if you could tour the facility?
That's fine.
That would be a
The
great
thing-
start. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're asked not to collaborate with ICE, yet we're asked to collaborate with them to confirm or deny information. So I'm trying to keep it apolitical and just stick to the facts, but I'm happy to go down there and look at it myself.
And I'm not, I don't think that affirms or anything of cooperation with ICE. That's not the intention of the ask. It's the intention of this is happening in our city. And there's multiple entities now within the city that are addressing this and working with constituents and working with you. And so having the opportunity to have that I account,
It's fine. I just said I would. I just said I would.
I'm encouraged that you
Yep.
said you would. I just wanted to
Good.
restate that.
Glad I said it then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any other council member comments?
Yeah, I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge Heath's comments about my comments in the work session around housing and affordable housing. First, I'm not anti-affordable housing. I'm about balancing housing in the community. And I understand that the local culture is greatly enhanced when our city can house those that actually support and work and serve and provide the engine that Heath referred to of the economy and the shops and the restaurants in our city. To have them have to leave the city hollows out the culture and the vibe that is so important in the city. We have a significant portion of affordable housing currently. This ask on the Thorstensen building is 25 units. That's not going to make a huge difference overall in the community as it pertains to affordable housing, but it is a step toward bringing some balance in the socioeconomic spectrum that we offer housing across a broad spectrum for folks to come into, not just low-income housing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to, I got a few things to address here. Thanks, Councilmember Graff. I think this is interesting discussion, actually. I really do. And I think it's, and I just wanted to be clear just about my positions on, as we spoke about that I definitely see the value in low-income housing and the value in the folks who live there. I just want to make sure that if we continue, that the need is there, that the data shows that if we're building that type of housing, we will get people moving into our city because that helps. If our city grows and builds, that helps us in many reasons. So rather than just folks moving from one area of the city to another. So that's, I want to see some more of that data. So I wanted to make that clear there. Mayor, if you happen to get a chance to go to the facility, I'd love to tag along. Just wanted to throw that out there. If that invite could be, if you get that opportunity, I'd like an invite. Also, I was wondering, and then I got a couple more things to add on to, but if there's anybody from admin that could speak to, there's a lot of questions about water, and one of the things I learned in some of these discussions about water was that as Pineview gets drawn down, that most of our drinking water comes from the well fields, and I think that could maybe clear up a little bit of understanding that in drought situations, obviously we want to continue to preserve and conserve as much as we can. But as far as the survivability of Ogden, what the status of that is with our well fields and how that goes. Because I really appreciate Mr. Rentmeister and his being here today. I actually know your granddaughter and your daughter, and so I loved hearing that story about them. I also wanted to take a little bit of, I wanted to report that I was happy to hear that the Planning Commission is taking up some of the issues that has been brought before them and take a little responsibility. I think it took too long, and I think personally, I could have reached out and tried to bring some of those issues to them before it happened. So a little bit of responsibility there. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Got a couple of things. I think I was kind of called out a little bit there too. I think maybe you took the credit for it, but I was a little concerned because I think Thoria used the word targeting, and nothing in my comments was intended to target any particular group of people, and I don't make a connection between artists and low-income people per se either. Maybe they are, maybe some are, maybe some aren't. I really have not made any connection with that at all. My question about artist loss is, do we have enough artists to fill the lofts? That was kind of where my question was. And that was where I wanted to get some data, was whether or not there was a real need for that. And that was my question about that. The idea, though, that Ogden should continue to supply more and more and more low-income housing when we already have 80% of the county's supply with only 30% of the county's residents. It doesn't seem like it's very balanced. And then when you consider the difference between how much rental property we have versus how much for purchase, I mean, and I was a renter. I rented 2 different places before we finally, 3, before I finally ever bought a home. And so there's certainly a place for rentals. But if that's all you have, then people don't have anywhere to move into to start to build that wealth that home ownership does build for people. And so you need to have a wide variety of housing types. I think Ogden is lacking in the ownership type. So that's why I'm concerned about us continuing to go down this idea that we need to supply more and more. And I'm just going to give you some anecdotes. I have been in meetings where people from other communities around our area they believe that Ogden should be the dumping ground for things that don't enhance their communities. I am seriously against that. I think we all ought to take a share of the wide variety of housing types so that you can live wherever you want, whenever you're in whatever season of life you're in. Ogden isn't working toward that by the nature of, you drive down Wall and up 12th Street and you see the 4-story apartment buildings that are prolific nowadays. And not that there isn't a place for that, and I'm not disparaging all that at all. It just doesn't fit the balance. And that's the concern I have overall. I was poor. I grew up poor. I didn't even know I was poor when I was a young kid. So there's nothing wrong with being poor. And you got to live somewhere. But I think Ogden has got to focus a bit more on this wide variety, and I think we are. That's what our new general plan is trying to focus on, make sure we have a wide variety of housing types. We don't have a lot of opportunity because we don't have a lot more bare ground to develop. So it's all redevelopment and that kind of thing. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that there is no attempt to target. We're not disparaging artists in any way. I'm in an artsy field for my job, so it's kind of near and dear to me. I just want to make sure that Ogden is healthy. It's a healthy community, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. Anything else, anybody?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
And Steve, I'm going to look over to you just on the CIP for 2017 to 2027. But I just wanted to speak into, Larry, just your comments in regards to how the city is approaching communicating with constituents about water and water conservation and water education. And I just want to note that in the CIP, if I'm reading it correctly, again, I'm on page 14 of the PDF, that under General City, it lists the citywide water education and conservation improvements at $2.4 million. And so that's just, that's encouraging that that's perpetual, and that's a priority of not only the administration, but city council, that we can continue to get the information out on the best water conservation efforts and to improve what we do in the city as far as making sure we uphold that so we can have water for years to come. And I also want to uplift everyone who has made comments regarding what was discussed in the work session, also in regards tonight to the budget. There are a lot of ongoing conversations that are being talked about inside and outside of council chambers, and I just continue to keep up your efforts. The output may not be matched with the want or the need, but the conversation is being heard and deeply considered. So thank you.
Okay. I think that concludes our council member comments. And so I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we do have one more meeting to go, and so we'll go ahead and wait till I get the thumbs up from our recorder, and we'll start our special redevelopment agency meeting. Thanks for coming, folks. We good? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our June 16th. Is that what it is? June 16th special redevelopment agency meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present with the exception of board member Ritchie. and Board Member Myers. Both have asked to be excused. So, first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the regular meeting of April 14th, 2026, and the regular meeting of May 12th, 2026. Board Member Washington.
I have reviewed those minutes and find them to be accurate.
Okay, need a motion?
I motion, sorry, I'm looking for the wording. I make a motion for the approval of minutes of the meeting on April 14th.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. And this is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have a public hearing. This is the proposed fiscal year 2025 to 2026 year-end budget amendment. Mr. Sorensen, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to come and do one last budget item for you for your consideration for fiscal year 26. This is mainly just cleanup in the redevelopment agency for a few different areas. So I'll go through those quickly and then allow for your consideration. So in this budget opening, this budget amendment, there's a few different items that we'd like to address. A couple of them are related to the same thing. So I'll just go through what those related items are. So in here, you'll notice that there are two different items related to Lincoln and then the CBD mall area. There's the Lincoln RDA area is an expired area. This was a haircut district that was used to support the CBD mall area with the debt service in that area. That area is now expired, and there's a small residual amount of funding left in that RDA area, and we're proposing to recognize that and transfer that $50,000 into the CBD area. Additionally, I'll apologize for skipping around. I should have put these in order of how they relate to each other. But in the airport CRA, this is a new RDA that was approved last year, and we did not have any budget set aside, or we didn't program any budget in this area for fiscal year 26. We did receive increment this year, and so we're proposing to recognize that increment in the amount of $2.5 million, as well as interest that would be earned with having a balance in that fund now. And then along with recognizing that budget would also include the amount that would go to the admin fund as well as housing. So with each of these areas, they have an agreement of a percentage that would go into the RDA housing fund and a percentage that would go into admin to support the administrative function for the redevelopment agency. So the RDA housing fund, the amount we're proposing to transfer there is $500,000. And then if I go back, the amount coming into the RDA admin fund is $125,000. And so those would both be coming from the airport CRA. Additionally, there's a couple other cleanup items that we're proposing. The Hinckley Drive RDA area is another closed area. Again, with each of these areas, as they have a balance in them because we pool our cash as a city and then we allocate out the interest as we earn it. Some of these funds that may have already been closed and they don't receive any more increment, if they had any residual funding left in them, they would also earn interest in those funds. And so that is what's in some of these. We're trying to get those closed out so that we can get those off of our books. And so in the Hinckley Drive, we're proposing to recognize the additional interest earned that's happened in that area as a use of fund balance. And what that will be used for, because it can only be used for items in the project area. This was an old area related to Williams International at the airport. And with a project going on, a large project going on that end of the airport, there's a small water line that they're doing some improvements to, and so we're going to use some of these funds to support that. And then in the South Wall area, again, some increment that had been earned and some interest earned. We're proposing to add $15,000 there. We had already appropriated $139,000 in a prior fiscal year in the South Wall. And again, these funds can only be used in that old area, so we're going to be doing some sidewalk and lighting improvements within that RDA area. We'll be working with public services to accomplish that. So I think I touched on all the items in this budget opening. I apologize again. I should have put them in order because certain ones were linked, but in the end, the total appropriation for your consideration is $3,257,000 as a year-end budget opening for the RDA. Any questions?
Any questions for Justin? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to the board on this item?
Chair, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2026-5.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Lindell, seconded by Board Member Lopez to adopt Resolution 2026-5. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lopez? Yes. Board Member Lundell?
Yes.
Board Member Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. Okay, comments from the Executive Director.
Now that that is completed, I just want to thank the staff, administrative staff, for all your work on the budget. I'm sorry that I've been so difficult all these many months, but I do really appreciate how hard you've worked and that I've had an opportunity to get to work with you and get to know you better throughout the process. So I really, really deeply value you guys and the work that you do, and getting to be around you has been a blessing. So thank you.
And comments from board members. Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Graff and second by Board Member Lundell to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.